In today's Monday with Mountains, we're going to look at the issue of tense change. And when you see a change in tense, it almost always is significant. Rarely do people just kind of choose a tense for whatever reason. And we're going to use the parable of the Good Samaritan, or as I used to say when I taught at Azusa, the good Biola student, to illustrate the significance of tense changes. Most of us are familiar with this parable, and we know that the lawyer's question is, who is my neighbor? Luke 10:29, and he uses Eston to ask the question, who is my neighbor? The problem, of course, is that the question is framed wrong. The question is framed to indicate that the lawyer wants to be restrictive. He wants to know who he's stuck helping. It's not that he wants to help people in need. He wants to know who he's responsible for, and he would obviously rather limit it to a very small group of people, either geographically determined or perhaps racially determined. What's interesting then is that Jesus tells the parable, and then he comes back with this conclusion. He says, which of these three do you think, and this is the NIV translation, was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The NLT says was as well. The problem is that the Greek verb isn't was, it's the perfect gegonenai. Why the perfect? Why not a simple aorist? Who was the neighbor? More properly translated is something like, who has become his neighbor? Why the perfect? Well, I think there's at least three reasons. Number one is Jesus' answer. The answer is that you've asked the wrong question. You've asked, who is my neighbor? Who am I responsible for? And rather, what you're supposed to be looking at, who can you be a neighbor to? It's a mind shift. The second clue as to why it's a perfect is the actual verb. It's from ginomai. It's not from eimi. Eimi is the idea of being. Ginomai is basically the idea of becoming. Now, I know there's a lot of semantic overlap between those two words, but the basic gist of ginomai is to become something. In other words, someone is becoming something that they weren't in the parable. And then the third clue is, in fact, it's the perfect, a completed action. So Jesus' question is really much more who, in the course of helping the beat-up person, who has become that person's neighbor? And of course, it's the Samaritan who has become. And the reason that it should be translated is that that's what Jesus is actually getting at. Not who is my neighbor, who am I responsible for, but who in the act of giving mercy to those who were within their reach to help has become a neighbor. And that's supposed to be our mindset. Which of us is going to become a neighbor to someone in need? Well, it's the person who helps, right? You can see this in the translations, and most of them use something like proved. Who proved to be a neighbor? New American Standard, ESV, CSB. The Net Bible has a very interesting footnote. They say became a neighbor, so that's actually much more accurate, I think. And then their footnote says, do not think about who they are, but who you are. That's their application of it. That you and I are not supposed to think about who we are, who they are, the people that need help, but who am I? Am I becoming a neighbor to those in need? You know, you can't help everyone, I understand that. And I think there are times that you almost can't help anyone. Parents with a brand new baby, people in full-time school. There are times in our life where it's much harder to become a neighbor. I understand that. But it is a mindset difference. So even for students in seminary, the question is not, excuse me, the question is not, who do I have to help get ready for their Greek exam? But who is within my purview to help get ready for the Greek exam so that I can become a neighbor to that person? That's the mindset difference. And a simple aorist, a simple was, doesn't communicate it. You've got to bring out something about the perfect and the basic meaning of ginomai, meaning to become. How would you do it? How would you translate it?